Great. Here we go. I welcome you professionals to this podcast. This is run by PMO Strategists, and PMO Strategists essentially is an entity practicing strategic project management and helping businesses to move in their strategic direction. Here, I would like to share with you the agenda for this event. This is how we are going to cover the approach and advancements. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to PMO Strategies, the entity, the purpose of the Strategic Corner podcast, the insightful views and experiences of the speaker and guidance for advancements, who is Dr. Kristine, where we are very lucky to have her here with us. Then finally, I'm going to share with you what services are provided by PMO Strategies. So let me go on further. Um, the purpose before I go into the purpose of the podcast, let me bring you a very brief introduction. PMO Strategies, as I said earlier, is an entity practicing strategic project management. Strategic project management is an area of evolved project management. The power it has reached to a level where it helps businesses to move the entire organization in their desired direction. Desired direction means strategic direction. So definitely the survival and growth is dependent in businesses moving in their desired strategic directions. So that is the basic area where PMO strategies helps the organization. Further on, I will be discussing about the services, but not now. So the purpose of the PMO strategies, PMO corner strategies is providing business and professionals to learn about the happenings in the present time and with the reference to the complexities and how to move to the next level with the help of the views, wisdoms, and experiences gathered from the speakers. So today, luckily, we have a very strong leader and professional who has very extensive work in the culture, which is very important part of the businesses to move on, because that is the ingredient which helps businesses to move with extra additional power, because culture brings the strategic the strategic edge in the market, and it is always unique to an organization. So now, before going to that detail, let me further on with the agenda. Here is my exposure to business industry. As I said earlier, my name is Muhammad Aslam Mirza. I'm practitioner of strategic project management. Extensively, I carry exposure to construction. My career was started in construction. About 25, 30 years I spent in construction, manage a company also in CEO and MD positions of construction activities. Then I moved to consulting because I thought that my exposure to business have reached to a level where I can be more effective in helping the businesses instead of running my own business. So now I have started this PMO strategies, and this area is most effectively required in the present time. Why this I'm going to talk about later on at the end of this event. Here I would only like to invite your attention to my 4 books, which are written under the theme of aura. Aura is AURA, and it is a distinctive environment surrounding of an professional or a team who are poised for high performance. So these 4 books are written under that theme, where R goes for applying project management principles for organizational transformation. U go for understanding human factors and workplace environment. R goes for respecting diversity, building teams, meaningfulness, and growing to leadership. R again is for agility in project management and collaboration. So this is how the 4 areas of competence helps a professional and a team to go to high performance. So just for your understanding, here is Dr. Kristine. I'm really thankful to Dr. Kristine that she took time to share her exposure, vision, and wisdoms into this area of the present time of complexities. Uh, Dr. Kristine, I may not be able to bring to the understanding of the participant to know exactly about your exposure and your area of expertise. I will request you to cover that area by yourself. Please, to you, Dr. Kristine, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here and talk to your listeners. So I have a background in cultural anthropology. I have a PhD in cultural anthropology, which is the study of humans or cultures. And anthropology is actually the discipline that created the whole concept of culture. So I'm really passionate about cultures, both from learning about people in different parts of the world and how their culture shapes and influences how they act and what they believe and just how they see the world. But also we can use those same principles to think about culture where we live, and what I focus on now is culture in our organizations. But we can also think about culture from, our local environments, our local geographic location, or you can think about culture from your maybe religion or your generation. We all participate in all these different subcultures. So that's why I think it's so fascinating. We all have different beliefs and values and things that impact how we act and how we see the world. And then we're all trying to interact with each other in the world and figure out how to get along, and in a business, how to achieve the business goals, right? But we have to recognize that we all come from very different places and we don't always see things the same way, which is actually, I think, what makes for wonderful companies. There have been so many studies showing that companies with diverse teams are more innovative. And I think history has shown us that the companies that have really great cultures, we know, have been very successful in businesses. And now there's a lot of studies that prove that companies with good cultures outperform their peers by 147%. Or there's all sorts of studies showing the importance of company culture, both statistically, but then we can also look at some wonderful case studies from companies that have focused on their culture and they attribute their success to their culture. So I am passionate about culture. My background, I actually started in academia. I started researching other cultures and teaching about cultures. And then I moved into consulting, where I did a lot of qualitative research as well as change management based, focusing on how to improve different company cultures. And I worked for a bunch of different organizations in all different industries and different sizes. We worked in oil and gas, education, healthcare, aviation, nonprofits, and worked with, small nonprofit local companies to big multinational companies, and did all sorts of things. Some of our clients were really focused on safety. For some, it was when there were mergers and acquisitions that they were wanting to figure out how to merge companies in their different cultures and move forward. Just all different wonderful problems that we got to work on and try to solve. And then I recently started Culture Grove, which is a company that helps organizations improve their company culture so that their employees and their businesses can thrive. And I very much believe that companies that have good environments where their employees are treated well and their employees can do their best work are going to be the most successful companies. And there's, again, lots of data that shows that that's the case. So that's why I work on trying to help companies create strong cultures so that they can be successful, but also their employees can be happy with where they, their jobs.
Great, Dr. Kristine. That's such an extensive exposure you carry. Now before we go into more details of the area where you would like to share your experiences, let me share with the participant for managing business complexities areas. It has four major areas as put down by me in the area of external, internal, operational, and strategic. So external area essentially covers global market volatility, technological changes, regulatory landscape, increasing competition, climate change, cybersecurity, geopolitical uncertainty, supply chain, and disruption. In the internal area, it goes along talent acquisition and retention, diversity, equity, inclusivity, and belonging, organizational culture and engagement, digital transformation, informed decision making, leadership development, change management, communication breakdowns. In the area of operational, it covers and it goes along managing remote workforce, streamlining processes, quality control, managing logistics, customer satisfaction, adapting AI and blockchain, managing intellectual property, managing risk. And in this area of strategic, it goes along with innovating business model, identifying news market, building strategic partnership, managing mergers and acquisition, competitive advantage, uh, fostering innovation and research and development, managing global expansion, sustainable business strategies. So these major areas of complexities, and these are the bare minimum which are being added every time to come and every going day. So in this area of business, the challenge is so huge that businesses are under problems to see how to move along, and at the same time keeping their focus on the flow of business whatever they are engaged in. So with this perspective, I will go back to Dr. Kristine and ask her to how you have been able and advising your clients that to manage these complexities in the present time. Dr. Kristine, please.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, present times are so challenging. We have a lot of change. And this is what I think is so important. Change is coming so rapidly right now. We've never in the history of humanity experienced change this rapidly that we know of. And so I think companies have to be able to figure out how to innovate, how to advance, and how are you going to adjust to the changes. We've got AI, we've got all sorts of changes happening. And culture is one way to do that. You have to be able to set up a culture that allows for innovation, allows for that change to happen. And there's so many studies on what types of cultures are the best for innovation. So I'm going to back up a little bit. I always like when I'm talking about culture to define it, because I think it is a very broad concept and it's confusing to people. So you hear a lot of people talking about culture, and the more they talk about it, I feel like they don't really know what culture is. So a basic definition of culture is that it's the learned and shared values, beliefs, and patterns of behavior of a group of people. So that part about being learned is really important. Culture, all the things that we do that are not instinctual to us, we learn our cultures. And so we learn, and then culture is based on our values. So we're taught what to value within our culture, right? We're taught what we think is important, what's right, what's wrong, but all of that is taught to us by different means, and based on different things depending on what cultures we're participating in. So values are a very important part of culture, and then it's shared among a group of people. So if I have a random thought or way of behaving that doesn't go along with the group, that's not part of our culture. That's just me doing something eccentric or different. And then our values and our beliefs impact the way we act. So that's the patterns of behavior. It impacts how we act at work. For instance, when we're talking about work. So I've, heard a bunch of people lately, I'm getting a little frustrated where people are tired of values, because people have focused on values a lot in a marketing sense, or maybe even in a design sense. Like, we're going to identify some values and we're going to put them on the wall, and we're going to say this is what's important to our organization, and that's it. And they don't really drive value. They don't drive behaviors. They don't influence decision making. Maybe they actually contradict what your employees' actually lived experience is in the company. So when that happens, values can actually create a big disconnect and disengagement from your employees when they see that you're saying one thing, but their lived experience is something else. So values are super important, but they're important that when we identify them, we actually identify they can't be too aspirational. They have to be what actually guides the behaviors and decision-making of your company. And it has to start with a leadership team. So if you're a leader and you have values identified that you don't exhibit, they're either not your true values, or you need to change as a leader so that you are, becoming the culture that you want to create. So I'm started with, I want us to be on the same page of what culture is. It's how we act, and we decide that through our values. Values are actually really important, where a lot of people these days, there's a bit of a backlash because people say values don't mean anything. They don't do anything. And if you're in an environment where they are meaningless, that's a problem, and that's going to create more disengagement. But they actually are foundational to having a strong culture, is identifying your values and having all decision making being driven by those values, which is something that I think is, we focus on at Culture Grove, is what's foundational to creating a culture. So the other thing about culture I wanted to talk about in this is that culture is both influenced by all of these external things are going to influence your culture. Cultures constantly change because of external and internal influences. So as technology changes, as global market changes, like we have, global pandemic, suddenly people are all working from home. All of that influences your company culture. And you have to be able to react as a company to these external changes, and you want to create a culture that can react to that. So one of the things that we know in studies of, what are the companies that innovate? It's all about having a culture that allows for people to make mistakes. You have to have, there's just so many things that are important about being able to innovate that come from your culture. You want to have diversity because you need diversity of thoughts and ideas and opinions to help you innovate. If everyone thinks the same on your team, you're all just going to validate the same ideas, and you're not going to have anyone to lead you forward to change. You're going to have one way of thinking, and that's it. And we tend to, as humans, want to be around, we surround ourselves with people who are like us. So in the workplace, we have to really challenge ourselves to, hire people who are different backgrounds, different ways of thinking, different experiences, and get them to come together and work together so that we can be innovative and create new ideas and new solutions. But we also have to create cultures where failure is okay. Because whenever you innovate, whenever you're, doing things different, you're going to have some mistakes. And if you're in a culture where failure is not allowed, where people have to always be perfect, people are going to be scared to try new things, and they're not going to innovate. So we know, a lot of the tech companies follow the fail fast mantra, which is let's create something, and if it doesn't work, we drop it and we move on, which is a good example. Not everyone has to do it as big or the same way, but it's a good example for companies that want to be innovative. You have to allow your people to try new things and have some freedom to see if something is going to work, and learn from the failures. If things don't work, I actually read something the other day that I thought was brilliant, was celebrate failures if you want to innovate. So you get the team together and you talk about, hey, these people went and tried a new thing. They had a new idea. It didn't work, but what did we learn from that? And you take learnings, but you also say, it's great that they tried something. We like trying new things, and you're going to have to go through several failures to get to what works, right? In anything we do that's different, there's going to be failures. So creating a culture where failure is not only allowed, but is celebrated is really important for innovation, which I think in these, complex times, we all have to be able to innovate. So I'm thinking through how you create a culture of innovation. And again, a culture is both influenced by all these external things. So it constantly changes. Okay, I think that's another piece that people miss about culture. They think we created our values, we put it out there, we did culture, we're done. But your culture as a business changes as your environment changes, as all these external things change, but it also changes with internal changes. So leadership changes can have huge impacts on your company culture, but so can, just some other changes with employees. Maybe you have, a bunch of new line level employees. And for instance, when we get younger people coming into the office right now, right? We have a new generation, and everyone talks about how they want to do things differently. And basically we have to, that has an impact on our culture, right? As new people are wanting different things in the workplace, they're requiring different things to work better. We have to adjust our companies to meet their needs and to get them where we want them to be. There has to be a little bit of a balance there. But I'm hearing from a lot of leaders right now that some of the new people, especially if it's companies that are doing return to office, where they've had a bunch of people working from home, some people have never worked in the office, and then they're moving them to the office. Those people, there's a lot of basic business etiquette that they don't know. They haven't been in an office. They don't know what's expected in that work setting. And so we have to teach them. We have to, have mentors. We have to have learning and development programs to teach our people what's expected in our culture, in our office. And it's different everywhere. So what might be acceptable in one company isn't going to cross into another company, or, and we know for sure there's big differences by industries. But then this also works the other way, where when we have more remote workforces and people working all over the world, people from different cultural backgrounds, then we have to think about, how do you create your company culture that's going to keep those people engaged and doing their best work? And that goes back to being intentional about the culture that you're creating and focusing on passing that down to all of your employees. So I believe really strongly in at Culture Grove, what we teach leaders is to be intentional and think about what are those values that they want their employees to focus on, what's going to drive decision making, but you want them to be simple so that your employees know and remember what's the priority. And I like to use the example of Kendra Scott, a billionaire jewelry company in the United States. She founded her company on her 3 core principles, which she says are her own, but they are also her businesses, and that's fashion, family, and philanthropy. And so from the family piece is how she tells all of her employees they're supposed to treat each other. They all should treat each other like their family. And she really focuses on creating a good environment for her employees so that they're happy and they can do their best work. But they also know that the customers should also be treated like family. So she has what she calls a sister principle, that when you are, if you're an employee working in a store, whenever you're engaging with a customer, you're supposed to react to them the way you would your sister if your sister were to come into the store. So if your sister came in with a problem, you have some leeway to address that problem the way you would your own sister, which there's real specifics about it. She gives birthday discounts and all these different things, but it allows the employees to know what's most important when they make decisions, and she gives them some freeway and freedom and autonomy to make decisions to treat the customer well. And that's basically what she's saying to everyone, right? Is the relationships are the most important. She wants her employees happy, and she wants, if they're happy, they're going to be nice and, treat the customers well. And because she creates this great environment, she's got this $1 billion company. She's a great example of building a strong culture and being intentional about it. So when a lot of companies now are saying, we have to return to office because we don't have culture, and, to fix the culture, you got to be in the office. But you can have a horrible culture with everyone sitting at their desk if you're not intentional about how you are doing culture. And we know so many people who say, yeah, I've returned to office and I'm still on Zoom meetings all day. So that doesn't do anything to fix the culture, right? In fact, now you've got people who are angry because they commuted to an office and they're doing the same thing that they could have done from home, and they could have saved themselves 2 to 4 hours of commute time. So for the companies that are still remote, you can have a great culture if you're remote. You just have to be intentional about it. And that goes to figuring out, what are your values? How are you going to teach them to your employees in a way that everyone gets it and it makes sense? And when they are doing their work, they know what the priority is. They know, what the purpose of the company is, what should be driving them. If it's innovation, then they know they can make mistakes and it'll be okay. If it's customer service, they know I do everything I can to put the customer first. If it's, simply making money, I do what I need to do to, ensure we increase our profits. But you're clear with your employees so they know what they're supposed to do every day, and they know what the culture is. And that all has to just constantly be communicated and reinforced. And whether you're in an office or working remote, you still have to communicate and reinforce what the company culture is. So I get frustrated with the idea that bringing people back is automatically going to create a good culture. it's not going to help if you're not intentional about what you're creating. So the leaders have to identify it, but they also have to constantly communicate it. And when they are, they need to talk to their people. They need to share what's worked, what hasn't worked, and tie it to the values. They need to reward people when they see them living out the values and doing well. We want to recognize and reinforce that behavior. And you need to make sure that any level of management that you have is on board with building your company culture. So a lot of times what I have seen in companies is you've got the C-suite that's all excited about a culture, and they all, embrace the values, and they're focused on, say it's safety, and they're adamant that safety is their most important thing. And then you talk to people on the line level, and they don't feel like safety is valued at all because their manager only cares about, production so that they hit their bonus. And what they have been told is work, work, work. We're not concerned about safety. So that message of safety gets lost at the management level, as an example, right? If the managers aren't on board. So leadership needs to be very careful and clear that at all levels of management, everyone is on board with the culture and how important it is for the success of their teams. Because I think managers a lot of times they're overworked, they're busy, they have a lot of competing priorities. And if they don't understand that if we, deal with the culture right now and create a good environment for our employees, and a lot of the people issues that managers have to deal with on a day-to-day basis go away. Because now you have people who are happy, they're taken care of, and they want to do their best work. But I think a lot of times companies think, we don't have time for culture because I'm really busy trying to recruit. We're really busy trying to retain our employees. We are spending all our time, trying to hire the right people. And if you have a strong culture, you don't have to spend as much time doing that. You're going to hire the right people. They'll be attracted to work for you. You're going to keep them, which all saves you money. So in the long run, that's the other piece is a strong culture helps a company meet their business goals and make the money that they want to make, right? It really, all the data shows companies with better cultures are more successful than those that aren't, because it saves money in all these different people areas. And it also frees you up from dealing with people problems to focusing on the strategic and operational complexities that you need to deal with.
Great.
That was a lot. A long
Great.
time.
Well, culture, I can understand. This is a subject which one can talk about at length. And still, you won't be able to satisfy yourself and satisfy the prospective audience. And of course, there will be questions. So anyway, I really appreciate the extensive exposure you have shared with with us, and the way you have said just reminded me the Peter Drucker's quote, where he said that if culture eats strategy for breakfast. That means whatever strategy you develop, whatever directions and preparation you make, if the culture is not supportive, you just forget it. It will come down like anything, because if the beauty of the culture is that you can make the way you want it, because there the leadership, it counts. And if you are not conscious of it, then it will form on its own, and that culture may go against you, against the need and requirement of the organizations. So that's the beauty of it. So it's better letting it go on its own. You better manage it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's such a good point. I always like to tell that, because a lot of people think, I don't have time for culture. It's this soft, fuzzy thing. We just don't do that. But you will have a culture. You do have a culture, whether you have time to be intentional about it or not. And if you let it evolve on its own, like you said, you don't know what you're going to get. It may be what suits someone else's needs and not necessarily the needs of the company as a whole. So it's really important to be intentional about your culture.
Very true. So although you have covered much bigger area of my second question, but it's still for my and the participants' satisfaction, let me ask you very explicitly, what you think should be the viewpoint for moving to the next level? What is your suggestion and your wisdom you would like to share?
So I think to move to the next level with culture, you have to know where you currently are. So feedback is so important. There's another, point that I think I talk to a lot of leaders who say, oh, my culture's fine, everything's great. But then when I dig in more, they're talking about how they're so busy dealing with all these different people issues. And I always say, well, if you're spending your time on the people issues, your culture is not so great. If you spend some time on your culture at first, then you don't have to spend the time on the people issues. But to really understand what your culture is like, you need to spend some time doing some research to get your employees' perspective on the culture. And again, your leadership team can all have one idea and say, we're doing all this stuff for our culture. We push it out. But if you don't hear from all of your employees, it may not be pushing out. I mean, it's probably not going out the same way to everyone. So you want to really understand how your employees are experiencing the culture and learn what works and what isn't working. So I think research is key to get feedback from your employees, and you have to get good feedback. There's a million different ways you can get feedback. Some are good, some are not so good. So doing a good research project is important. But also when you're doing those employee studies, you have to do something with the results. You cannot just get it and look at it and move on. You need to communicate to your people what the findings were and what you're going to address. And even if you say, hey, our scores look really good, we're happy with everything right now, at least you gave them a feedback that you looked at it and you're happy with where the scores are. Or if you say, well, we see these one or two issues have arisen from this research, and we aren't in a place to address them right now. Maybe it's, pay is lower than industry and the company knows they can't do anything at the moment about that. They should be transparent and say, we know this is an issue and we want to, raise our sales by X amount so that we can raise your salaries by X amount. You've got to communicate what you're finding and give the information back to your employees. Let them know that you know what the problems are and that you have a plan to address them or you are addressing them. Otherwise, the next time you ask your employees for feedback, fewer people are going to respond and they may not be as honest with you. And if you're a company that constantly asks for feedback, but you don't do anything with that feedback, eventually people are going to stop responding. So that's my main thought on how you move to the next level is start with the research and understand where you are currently, know where you want to be and identify those gaps, and then figure out how to address those gaps.
True, very true, and very pertinent to the issue. And I really appreciate that. Very, very rightly you have said that culture can be developed and the way you want it. And that is how it should be, because organizations need to spend time on cultures, because if they want to build up their competitive edge in the market, definitely this adds to that, and definitely it brings that value which can be brought up. Thank you very much with sharing all these information. Let me move on to the next area, and here I would like to share that in the complexities and the challenges what Dr. Kristine has just shared with us. PMO strategist has got the expertise to help the businesses for moving in their strategic directions by diagnostic assessment of gaps in strategy and execution, strategic alignment and discipline, strategy execution, which is the four most important thing businesses need in the present time. PMO functions optimization. If organizations have their PMO strategists, PMO strategies can help them to enhance and optimize their functions. It can add to their change management and culture transformation. It can help them leadership development, monitoring, and coaching, because leadership is the basic ingredient to add to the culture, to formation of the culture. Further on, PMO strategies also helps in training on building resilience and adaptability in the teams and leaders, which is the four most important area in the present challenges time. Enhancing communication and collaboration, driving innovation and creativity, developing strategic thinking and problem solving skills. These are the areas broadly taken up for helping the businesses to move in their strategic directions. Before I go for the close, I will request again Dr. Kristine to share if something more is coming to her mind and she would like to share with the participants finally.
My goodness, I shared so much. And like you said, I could talk about culture for days. It's just such a big concept, right? There's so much that it impacts. So, I don't know. I guess I would just like to leave everyone with that it is a difficult concept, but you can influence culture, and it's important to influence your culture if you want to meet your goals. So if you're a company that you are not meeting your business goals, that's a culture problem, and we can help you to work through those culture issues.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Dr. Kristine, let me offer my apologies. I didn't offer you tea. I was just taking tea. That remains due. And whenever you find time, I will offer you tea or coffee of your liking. And with this, thank you very much once again. And finally, I will ask the participants to take action in the areas, and if they want to understand the PMO center of excellence, because that's the basic idea which has been brought up. Center of excellence is in practice since last couple of decades, and PMO is also in practice, but PMO needs to be evolved into a center of excellence, and that in the present time AI leverage, because everything is being supported with the AI. So AI leverage is the need of the present time, and their PMO strategies can help the businesses to apply project management with AI support and taking it to center of excellence level. Um, with this, thank you very much and for your time and all that. And Dr. Kristine, again, thank you very much for your time and the sharing of your knowledge and exposure. And looking forward to work with you in this area, and wherever you feel that something can be done is needed to be done. At least PMO strategies. On behalf of PMO strategies, I'm ready to work with you. And with this, thank you very much again. And just last but not the least, if there is any question from the participants or for anyone who feels that more clarification is required, they can reach out to me, and definitely I will request Dr. Kristine to respond if there is anything from her to be responded. And on her behalf, I'm taking the liberty to say she will provide whatever is needed.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you very much. So with this, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.